time for convening has arrived. We'll open tonight's meetings with our work session. The first item on the work session is a report and update on the Safe Streets for Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan by Ms. Westcott.
Oh, there it is. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are here to talk about Safe Streets for Sandy Springs, our safety action plan. We actually have achieved about an 80% milestone on completion of this plan. So tonight with us is Nathan Gomez. He's our project manager from Gresham Smith. We'll look at some information on the update. Pardon? Nathan Gomez. Nathan Gomez? Yes. But we will have a short update on current findings from our additional analysis. We're going to talk a little bit about setting some safety metrics for trying to get to 0 fatal crashes and 0 high injury crashes over time. And we're also going to talk about how do we get there. So some strategies, programs, policies, and things like that to consider as we kind of get to our final. We are trying to actually prepare a draft report this month. So we're on October 1st today, but we'll be back in the spring for adoption. So we won't be asking for any adoption or action this evening, but we would like to hear your feedback and questions. And if there is anything that we cannot answer tonight, we will absolutely research that. Because we've turned over a lot of stones on this project, but we haven't, we keep, every time we see more information and data, because we've dug down into so deep into this, we find some more interesting things to think about. So if there's a particular aspect of crashes that you'd like us to look at, let us know. So with that, I will introduce Nathan.
Thank you, Kristen, and thanks, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to come in front of you and present the update to the Safety Action Plan. The last time I was here, it was back in June. We had just started the plan. Now, like Kristen said, we are about 3/4 of the way into the plan and kind of working our way into creating a draft plan and getting the draft plan back in front of the public. So good time to give an update to you. So hopefully after I go through this presentation, you have questions. I'll try to answer any of the questions that you have. All right. Let's see if this works. Okay, there you go. All right. Just a quick agenda. Because it's been a few months, I'll just quickly do an overview, present some of the updated facts since the last time we talked. And like Kristen said, a big part of this plan is goal setting, what we want to achieve at the end of the day into the years in the future. So we'll talk about that. We'll touch on that. And some of the potential projects and programs that will allow us to get there. And we'll briefly touch on the next steps coming up in the next weeks and months after today. So just a quick overview of the plan. The Safety Action Plan has an overarching goal to reduce and eventually eliminate all fatalities and serious injuries on roadways within Sandy Springs. The fatalities are obvious, and serious injuries are those injuries which change a person's ability to live life as that person lived before. So the two target types of crashes are the crashes which result in a fatal injury or a severe injury, and we'll see that on these slides as we go forward. The plan is developed based on what we are calling Federal Highway Safe System approach, which talks about the fact that humans do make mistakes. And when they make those mistakes, they are vulnerable, and we want to make sure that those mistakes that humans make on our transportation systems don't lead to a fatality or a serious injury. Quickly touch on the schedule so far. So we are, like I said, about 3/4 of the way into the plan development. Our goal is to have a draft plan complete and ready for public view by end of October, so that we can plan for our next public meeting into November, and all with a goal to have the plan finalized towards end of January, and then come back to this group, to the Mayor and Council, for adoption sometime in February and March. And because this plan is funded by USDOT grants, we do have some time built in for review by FHWA and adoption towards the end of May next year, beginning of June. So we have a deadline of June 1st, 2025. Through this plan development, we have talked to a lot of folks, including public meetings and different groups who have given us input. This slide just shows the locations where we have gotten feedback from. Again, nothing surprising here, but some of the themes are related to lack of protection for vulnerable users. Those vulnerable users are those folks who don't have a metal surrounding them when they're using the transportation system. Bicyclists, pedestrians, motorcyclists, inadequate signage or road markings, intersection turning issues, speeding is a big problem. Driveway ingress and egress, so getting into driveways along some of our major corridors, and some poor visibility and roadway obstructions along our transportation system. Since last time we met, we were able to sit down with law enforcement staff within the city and look at some of the crashes, some of the fatalities that occurred over the years in detail. So we were able to get some more insight into those. And like we discussed last time, our focus crashes are those crashes which happened between 2018 through 2022, the 5-year period. Approximately 27,502 reported crashes within that 5 years, which also included 38 crashes which resulted in a fatal crash, or 38 fatal crashes, or 205 crashes which resulted in a serious injury. And that pie chart to the bottom left-hand corner shows 50% of the crashes occurred on Sierra 400 or I-285. Again, may not be a big surprise, but a good chunk of the crashes did happen on Roswell Road. Again, a state-owned highway. A sliver of crashes did occur on Holcomb Bridge Road, and about a third of the crashes did happen on streets which are owned by the city. One of the things that we discussed last time and you wanted to see was how does the trends, we're focusing on 2018 through 2022, the 5-year period, but how does this look going back even further? And this chart kind of shows the number of crashes within Sandy Springs over this 2013 to 2023 time frame, the 11 years. So approximately what this chart shows, the crashes have gone down, and it has gone down approximately by about 20% or so. And that trend actually even holds same when we consider what we are calling VMT, or vehicle miles traveled, or the total traffic activity within the city. So even when we consider the total amount of traffic, that same drop in crashes did occur. About 25% drop in crashes when we compare the 5 years to the past and the recent 5-year history. However, when I said, even though we're looking at all crashes, a focus of our crashes are really those crashes which resulted in either a fatal injury or a severe injury. So in the transportation industry, we call fatal crashes, denote those crashes as K and serious injuries as A. This graph kind of shows where those KA crashes happened in the city. Again, same trends hold. About half of the KA crashes happened on 400 or 285. About a third happened on city streets, and about 15-20% happened on Roswell Road. 1% happened on Holcomb Bridge Road. So compared to those last couple of graphs that showed, when we really now look at the trends related to just those fatal and severe injury crashes, you see the trends not going down, but actually, in fact, going up. So this is the graph which shows fatal crashes, serious injury crashes, and combined over the last in a few years, the trend is actually going up. So and even this compared to the traffic activities that we see, the trends again kind of go up. So where the overall crashes showed about a 20-25% reduction in the last 5 years compared to the 5 years before, the fatal and serious injury crashes showed almost a 30% or 35% or 40% increase in the last 5 years. So it is concerning, and really the time, therefore, is right now to address why those increase in crashes are happening and try to put in place programs and policies to address exactly those. This plan development is funded by a federal grant through US DOT. One of the criteria for this grant is to look at crashes which have happened within areas which are traditionally underserved or don't have transportation options at the other parts of the city. So the equity-focused areas specifically for this plan are those which are called areas of persistent poverty, or those census tracts which has a poverty rate of at least 20%. And also second type is the historically disadvantaged communities, those census tracts which have a high concentration of poverty or reduced access to opportunities or transportation facilities or transportation options. When we look at again with a focus on fatal crashes or severe injury crashes within the city, some type of crashes are overrepresented. So, for example, single vehicle crashes. When we consider all 27,000 crashes in the city, only 8% of those might be a result of single vehicle crash. But when we now look at that subset of fatal or severe injury crashes, 36% of those has something to do with being a single vehicle crash. So those are the overrepresented type of crashes that we are trying to address through some of the programs and policies. So pedestrian crashes, crashes that might have some involvement of aggressive drivers, motorcycles, distracted driving, impaired driving. They're all the 6 main categories that we see some kind of overrepresentation within that subset of fatal and severe injury crashes. And we also looked at some of the conditions that might clue us into what's happening here, what some characteristics are those of the fatal and severe injury crashes. Dark conditions, crashes on Sunday, that might be because the lower levels of traffic, which might then lead to higher speeds of higher distracted driving or higher aggressive driving behaviors. And also crashes on state roads. And we know that's an issue, knowing what's happening on 285, 400, and specifically also on Roswell Road. We know the crash history indicates a higher percentage of KA crashes. Just to dive a little bit deep into some of those categories, single vehicle crashes happen during dark conditions. We see that a lot of those cause crashes with vulnerable road users. Distracted driving is also a problem, which explains single vehicle crashes. Pedestrian crashes it usually happen within the confines of an intersection. It happens more often during dark conditions. And distracted driving can also lead to pedestrian crashes on our roadways. Aggressive driving, quite often combined with speeding. It occurs at early hours of the day and could lead into those roadway departure or single vehicle crashes that happens. Distracted driving is also a big portion of what explains fatal crashes and severe injury crashes in the city. It leads to rear-end crashes, occurs during the morning peak hours, and also happens very close to the intersection areas. Just going into a discussion about goal setting. So as the plan is developed, this is one of the areas where we will be requesting feedback from mayor and council, and as part of the adoption process, these goals will be part of the plan. So definitely want to go over these with you in detail. So that first bullet point talks about adopting the city safety program goal to achieve 0 fatalities and serious injuries by 2050 on city-owned streets. So those are the streets which the city has ownership, so not necessarily 285, 400, steroid 9, or 140. And we'll look at what that 2050 year looks like. One of the requirements of the plan is to have such a goal and such a time frame to achieve that zero target. So that is the city-owned streets. What about the other streets which are owned by GDOT and not necessarily within the ownership of city, is for an annual 5% reduction in fatalities and serious injuries. And we'll look at how that looks like and what does that do to our overall goal of getting 0 fatalities and crashes within the city. The third is a goal around establishing some kind of program to make sure that funds are allocated towards safety improvements. At least half of the projects that are delivered within the city include some kind of proven safety countermeasures, or those which have been identified by FHWA as proven safety countermeasures, those treatments that we know really can help reduce those fatal incidents or serious injury crash-causing incidents. And also maybe considering 30% of safety projects are delivered within an underserved community, and so on and so forth. Goals could be set around that. And also, lastly, an example goal is the identifying that timeline for implementation of access management improvements along Roswell Road. We've heard Roswell Road came up again and again on all forums that we talked about, whether it was public or interest groups or advocacy groups, different groups that we talked to. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we have a goal around projects along Roswell Road. So this is that graph which shows how an elimination of fatal or serious injury crashes by 2050 would look like. That yellow jagged line shows the historical crashes, historical fatal or serious injury crashes on just city streets, on streets that are owned by the city. And in order to get to 0 on city-owned streets by 2050, it approximately looks like we need to reduce approximately half a crash or one whole KA crash every year from now until 2050 to get there. So this kind of helps us think about, okay, what are the milestone reduction in crashes that we need to achieve 5 years from today, 10 years from today, and so on and so forth, to get to that 0 goal of 2050. The story is quite different on state routes. Obviously, these routes are not within the purview of the city, and therefore the improvements of the projects that we can program and deliver on these streets, and the ability to do so is not as much as the streets that are owned by the city. This would be working with other partners in the region, like GDOT, and maybe even in some cases the federal government. So the yellow, the jagged lines towards the left part of the screen kind of shows the historical crashes or the historical fatal and severe injury crashes on state routes, Roswell Road, Holcomb Bridge Road, 285 and 400. And then those three curves indicate how the number could be reduced year over year if we were to realize 5% annual reduction or 10% annual reduction or 15% annual reduction. It kind of shows the stark story that, even if we go with a 5% reduction, we're looking all the way into 2100 to realize that goal of zero. So, however, we don't want to put a stringent goal on us, knowing that this does take an extensive amount of work working with partners, and we don't have entire control over these routes. To achieve these, what does that look like when we actually put projects and programs on paper? Is on the next slide. How we organized that was in the industry, we called it different buckets of E's. So you'll hear the 4 E's of roadway safety, or the 6 E's of roadway safety, and things like that. So the first E here is education. A lot of the crashes that result in fatal or severe injury crashes are not related to infrastructure that we have around us, but due to behavior. Speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, impaired driving. They're all behavioral related things that it needs a different type of projects or programs than putting concrete or asphalt on and building roads or roundabouts or whatever it might be. The education ones, working with local partnerships like CHOA or Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and coming up with those tactical campaigns or awareness campaigns around drunk driving and distracted driving, making sure that we educate our residents, motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists about the safe and legal interactions within our transportation system. And also, a part of this is some kind of targeted outreach to the Spanish-speaking population, the limited English proficiency communities that we have within our city. The second E is encouragement, which is really to use the powers that we have as a city to encourage safe practices, buckle up, speed messages, and so on and so forth. Continue some of the work that the city has done on the free child safety seat inspections, enhanced collaboration within the different departments within the city, really emphasizing and putting roadway safety at the top of why we make decisions, the way we make decisions on projects and policies. And also then utilize some of the context-sensitive designs to encourage safer driving. A lot of times, driving behaviors are a result of the designs that we put out on our roadways. So we want to definitely make sure that the projects that we design and the designs that we come up with really are specific to the roadway context and the land use surrounding those roadways. Enforcement is a big E. Some of the solutions that we are coming up with really relate to how much we can enforce or how much we want to enforce. So that first bullet talks about we have done extensive crash analysis. We know exactly, at least where the crash history tells us, speeding-related crashes occurs or impaired crashes occur. So share that with the law enforcement staff that we have here in the city. we are able to do these kind of work because of the great reporting that law enforcement does. So emphasizing the fact that we definitely value those, and then we want to make sure that as much information that we can report and record within the crashes that we see on our corridors definitely helps us going forward. Coordinating with the schools in the area to make sure that we are doing the enforcement around school zones. And a big part of that is we understand that this does need those additional resources to be able to do this additional enforcement that we need to definitely get to that zero of KA crashes in the city. So expanding the resources available to Sandy Springs PD is a big part of that, part of the equation. And also, then combined with that, expanding the enforcement programs that we know can result in the goals that we have identified for ourselves, the hands-free law, speeding, DUI, pedestrians, and road safety checks that we need to do. The fourth E is the one that most of us are familiar with, the engineering E, making sure that we do program quick win safety projects, the improvements along Roswell Road, making sure that we make the roadway system for the folks that using our bus system and the transit system easier and safer to use, making sure that the crosswalks are close to high ridership bus stops, and also considering installing additional crossings. And we heard a lot of these things in our public meetings.
Mr. Gomez, I
yes.
need you to pick up the pace a little
yes.
bit.
Yes, and then I'm almost done here. Considering eliminating some of the right turns on reds and focusing on those countermeasures that we know can eliminate K&A crashes. The second last E is evaluation. We need to study what these things do and continue those, what works. And the emergent response is also good. We have some of these technologies already in place. We're going to continue that. And then, I guess, with that, I'll open up of questions. And before I just say, the next steps are really to complete a draft by the end of this month. The second public meeting will be planned for November 2024 with an eye towards adoption somewhere in February, March of 2025.
All right, thank you. Any questions by council? All right, thank you, Mr. Gomez.
All right, thank you.
All right, that concludes our work session. We'll move to regular order. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sandy Springs City Council to order for Tuesday, October the 1st, 2024. Will the city clerk please make the announcements and call the roll?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I would like to remind those in attendance, please silence cell phones and any other electronic devices at this time. Individuals who would like to provide public comment at a council meeting are required to complete and submit a public comment card in advance of these meetings. Those public comment cards are available online at the chamber entrance. Those providing public comment may be allotted up to 3 minutes to speak on their single chosen topic. Now, as I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Rusty Paul.
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson. Here. Councilmember Melody Kelly. Present. Councilmember Melissa Mueller.
Present.
Councilmember Jody Rochelle. Councilmember Tibby DeGiulio. Councilmember Andy Bauman. Here.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment cards?
Yes, we've received 2, possibly 3. The first is from Bill Griffith, who will be followed by Ray Moss.
Mr. Griffith.
Mr. Mayor and council members, 2 weeks ago I said prior to completion of the Roberts Drive side path, 2 dangerous situations exist, neither of which are addressed in the Roberts Drive side path scoping study dated May of 24, the study. I said I would discuss the second situation later. I'll do that now. What is it? The Highway 9 bridge over the river, the bridge. In my opinion, the bridge is dangerous for bicyclists and pedestrians. Why do I say that? First, the bridge has a 5-foot wide walkway on its east side that has a non-protected drop-off of 14 inches to the roadway. I believe that unprotected drop-off is dangerous. It's too much. Second, the side rail along that walkway is not designed to safely protect bicyclists and pedestrians who might lose their balance and fall into the river 30 feet below. The rail is only 34 inches high. I believe that's too low. It's below my center of gravity when I run or walk, and it's below my bicycle seat. Third, I've fallen multiple times while running or walking. It's amazing how fast you hit the ground, and you don't have much control over where you land. Currently, it's not unusual to see bicyclists and pedestrians going across the bridge using the walkway on its east side. Actually, that's probably an everyday occurrence. Completion of the side path prior to completion of the below referenced pedestrian bridge will likely increase bicycle and pedestrian traffic over the bridge. Although a pedestrian bridge at Highway 9 is a critical part of the trail system, the side path recommendation in the study is not contingent on completion of a pedestrian bridge. Furthermore, the study does not address improving the safety of that bridge and the safety of the biking and walking route prior to completion of the bridge, and that may be years away. Years ago, the side rail on the Roberts Drive Bridge that crosses Georgia 400 was about 3 feet high. Later, a fence was added that raised the protected area to maybe 7 feet. Recently, the bridge was replaced. The new bridge has a rail and fencing that's 10 feet high and a sidewalk that's over 6 feet wide with an unprotected drop-off of only 6 inches. Recently, I spoke with a bridge engineer at GDOT regarding the protocol for increasing the height of the rail on the bridge. He said that 3 feet is code, but the city can request a modification to the rail. Tweak 7, regardless of when you proceed with the side path, do what's necessary to increase the height of that rail. Thank you.
You're quite
By
welcome.
the way, that rail is less than the length, less than the height of this. You can see how high it might come on that.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ray Moss, followed by Kim Marchner.
All right. Mr. Moss, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Ray Moss. I'm a 43-year resident of Sandy Springs. I live at 425 Otter Creek Court in the Glen Meadow neighborhood. In regard to the study, I would recommend that each high-density population and business road segment be researched. I live in a traditional neighborhood that is on Peachtree Dunwoody between Abernathy and Spalding Drive. Although it's only 1.8 miles long and 1/2 mile wide, with Georgia 400 on the west and the city limit boundary on the east, it represents a high density of office buildings, apartments, and homes. North Park Complex has 1,293,470 square feet in their 3 buildings. And their garage deck space is 1,806,433 square feet. So you can imagine the number of cars that enter those garages off of Peachtree Dunwoody and leave in the afternoon. Next is Embassy Road. They have 1,038,869 square feet in their office buildings. That's right next door. So you can imagine the traffic coming out of those buildings that the entrance is less than 200 yards. 4 other business buildings, complexes have 424,000 square feet. 6 apartment complexes on this 1.8 mile length have 1,800 apartments. Are you beginning to get the density now? Also, 480 individual owned home dwellings are on this strip. Fulton County assessor market value of the above is $1,144,951,593. Yes, this represents 9/10 of a square mile. Although there are sidewalks on both sides of Peachtree Dunwoody, they are very seldom used, and bicycles are very seldom seen. School bus stops are primarily at apartment complexes, as most children in the eventually owned homes
Mr.
go
Moss,
to
I
private schools.
need you to wrap it up. Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
You just get to your conclusion.
Okay. All right. So we would like to see that the research firm being hired, or who has been hired, to track current walker patterns by time of day, places they cross streets, and the number of walkers by day part. And the same for bikers. Signal light.
Mr. Moss, do you have that in writing?
Yes.
Could you provide that to the city clerk, and we'll put that into the record that the consultant will get?
Yes.
And that way, it'll make sure it gets into the record, and your remarks and views will be be transmitted to the consultant.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Next we have Kim Marchner, who is not in attendance. That's
Okay.
it. Oh, you're here? Okay.
Kim Marchner.
Perfect.
Okay.
I was thinking that I would actually talk about this issue at the next one, but I filled out a form like 5 to 6, and I didn't expect to be on the agenda. But anyway, I am a resident here at Ashton, and this past weekend was very disruptive to my quiet enjoyment of my home, and several of my neighbors certainly feel the same way. But the music to go on for 2 days, as loud as it is so disruptive to even being within my property. And I could not make a phone call when the bands were playing. TV was out of the question because it was just that loud. The other concern, and you may be asking, well, why didn't she just leave and go someplace else? Which I, had plans over the weekend, but it was so difficult to get out of the parking garage. And the only way that was available to me was to get on Johnson Ferry Road. And it took 30 minutes for me to get from my apartment to Roswell Road on Johnson Ferry. And just as, coming back home from the one appointment I did get to early on Saturday morning, it was just, it was impossible to even think about going out again. So basically, I felt like I was a captive in my own home, and have called a couple of times, but the suggestion was to ultimately just show up here, and I was going to send an email to Jody now that I have her address, but it was just, to me, there was not enough consideration in the planning process for ways for the residents to get out. And the music seems to be getting louder and louder. And I don't know if there's what the limit is, but it's very disruptive. And I'm bringing this to your attention now because I know that there is another plan for
Ms. Marcher, I need you to wrap it up. Your time is up.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying you've got another festival in 2 days or 2 weeks that's going to last 2 days. So I just wanted to see if somebody would like to hear my suggestions at some point.
Do you have those in writing?
I do not.
Okay. Would you mind putting those in writing
Of
and providing them
course.
to us?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing.
Yeah. Any other?
No.
All right. We'll close the public hearing. Mr. DiGiulio.
I move approval of the meeting agenda for Tuesday, October 1st, 2024.
We have a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve the meeting agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on approval of the meeting agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The meeting agenda is approved. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Paul,
Ms.
I
Rochelle.
move that we approve the consent agenda for Tuesday, October 1st.
Motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on the approval of the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The consent agenda is approved. Moving to presentations, I have one presentation tonight. I think everybody will recall that a year ago, we had about slightly over 10,000 people on this campus right after the October 7th event in Israel that touched off what is now a year-long war in the Mideast and got worse today. So in recognition of the first anniversary of that horrible day, I have a proclamation that says, whereas on October 7th, 2023, the terrorist organization Hamas and Palestinian extremist militants breached the border between Israel and Gaza, launching a massive coordinated assault against Israel, slaughtering civilians and abducting hostages. And whereas almost 1,200 people were killed in the assault, including families attacked in their homes, attendees of an outdoor music festival celebrating the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, with many more wounded, more than 240 civilians and soldiers, including children, were taken to the Gaza Strip as hostages. And whereas these heinous acts have brought pain and suffering to countless families and communities across the world, with hate crimes against Jewish people increasing drastically since the terrorist attack in Israel, and whereas the city of Sandy Springs recognizes the urgent need to act against anti-Semitism in Sandy Springs and across the country, as well as the importance of promoting peace, understanding, and resilience in the face of such brutality. And now, therefore, I, Russell K. Paul, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Sandy Springs, on behalf of the city council, do hereby proclaim October 7th, 2024 as a day of remembrance, and encourage all citizens to honor the memories of those lives were taken too soon, acknowledge the pain endured by those injured during the attack, support those affected, stand in solidarity with the families of those still being held hostage, and commit ourselves to a future free from violence and hatred. Given under my hand the seal of the city of Sandy Springs, Georgia, on the 7th day of October 2024. And I know we have a commemorative event that will be here in Sandy Springs on the 7th, and I'm going to ask Mr. Bauman if he will transmit this to the appropriate people and make sure that that it is part of the celebration, or not, the commemoration of that particular event. All right, moving on to, yes.
I suggest that the council approve of this on a unanimous basis.
Sure.
To show that we are all in agreement with this, and that we are all in support of our brothers and sisters in Israel and in our sister cities and our Jewish contingent here in Sandy
I'll be
Springs.
happy to accept that as a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that the council vote full affirmation of the proclamation I just read. I issued it in your name because I believed everybody would be in support of it, but a vote will be fine. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on the motion to endorse the proclamation by the council. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Moving to public hearings, the clerk will please read the first item.
Agenda item number 2024-244. This is ABL number 110400. Consideration of approval of an alcoholic beverage license application for Mojave Hospitality Partners, LLC, doing business as Mojave, at 6450 Powers Ferry Road, Sandy Springs, Georgia, 30339. The applicant is Rainer W. Shaw for consumption on the premises, wine, malt, and distilled spirits, presented by Chief Financial Officer Tony Carlisle.
Ms. Carlisle.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council. This is a change of ownership for consumption on the premises, wine, beer, and distilled spirits. Mojave Hospitality Partners, LLC, DBA Mojave, 6450 Powers Ferry Road, Sandy Springs, Georgia, 30339. The applicant, Rainer W. Shaw, has met all requirements and staff recommends approval.
All right, is there any comment cards? All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Mr.
I
Baumann.
move adoption of agenda item 2024-244, approval of the alcohol beverage license application for Mojave Hospitality Partners, DBA Mojave.
We have a motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2024-244, approval of an alcoholic beverage license application for Mojave Hospitality Partners, LLC, at 6450 Powers Ferry Road, Sandy Springs. Any discussion?
Where is this?
It's out by Rays on the River, just back this side.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's been many a meal served there. All right, any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-244, approval of alcoholic beverage license application for Mojave Hospitality Partners at 6450 Powers Ferry Road. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-245. This is ABL number 110498. Consideration of approval of an alcoholic beverage license application for Bocado Burger Co., LLC, doing business as Bocado, and that's at 6300 Powers Ferry Road, Suite 400, Sandy Springs, Georgia, 30339. The applicant is Brian Lewis for consumption on the premises, wine and malt beverages, presented by Chief Financial Officer Tony Carlisle.
Ms. Carlisle.
This is a new application for consumption on the premises, wine, and malt beverages. Bocado Burger Company, LLC, DBA Bocado, 6300 Powers Ferry Road, Sandy Springs, Georgia, 30339. The applicant, Brian Lewis, has met all requirements, and staff recommends approval.
We received any public comment cards? All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. What is the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann,
I
a lot
move
going on in your area tonight.
Yeah, well, got a lot of choices. I move adoption of agenda item 2024-245, approval of the alcoholic beverage license app for Bocado Burger Co., LLC, DBA Bocado.
Got a motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2024-245, approval of an alcoholic beverage license application for Bocado Burger, DBA Bocado at 6300 Powers Ferry Road, Suite 400. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-245, the alcoholic beverage license application for Bocado Burgers. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-246, consideration of a resolution to approve the 2023 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, presented by Planning and Zoning Manager Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Ms. McIntosh Ross.
Yes, greetings, Mayor and City Council. Tonight I bring a resolution for your consideration to approve the 2023 Consolidated Performance and Evaluation Report. This is also known as the CAPE, which is the report of project activities associated with the city's CDBG program over the previous fiscal year. Staff has prepared the 2023 CAPE according to the requirements for submission to the HUD agency. In summary, the progress of the projects during the reporting time period, July 1st of 22 to June 30th of 2023, has been in accordance with the goals of the 2023 Annual Action Plan. The draft CAPA has been posted to the city's website for review since July 31st. No comment has received, and also we had a public hearing on August 20th this year. Staff recommends approval of a resolution to authorize the submission of the 2023 CAPA to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
All right, you've heard the report of the, any public comment cards? No. God, we're still in public hearing. All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the planning and zoning manager. What's the desire of council? Mr. Paulson.
There we go. I move approval of agenda item 2024-246, approval of the 2023 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report.
Have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2024-246, a resolution approving the 2023 Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-246, a resolution approving the 2023 Community Development Block Grant CAPER. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Moving to new business, the clerk will please read the first item.
Agenda item number 2024-247, consideration to approve participation and approve entering into a memorandum of understanding to accomplish this purpose to the FY 2024 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. I have listed Chief D. Simone would present, but actually presenting this evening is the city's grants administrator, Dabney Brand.
Well, welcome for your first presentation
Thank
to council.
you, sir. Thank you.
So proceed.
Okay, I'm here today to present the FY 2024 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grants Program. The U.S. Department of Justice Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program provides funding necessary to support criminal justice initiatives, including providing additional personnel, equipment, supplies, contractual support, training, technical assistance, and information systems for criminal justice. The City of Sandy Springs is eligible to receive a formula amount of $14,555 with no matching funds required. The application process, the city has been identified as a disparate jurisdiction, and joint application must include all eligible applicants in the grouping, including Fulton County, Alpharetta, Atlanta, College Park, East Point, Roswell, South Fulton, and Union City. The City of Sandy Springs Police Department recommends these funds be used to purchase the following items: Quantity 4 Advanced Covert Technology ACT surveillance cameras to assist officers to better conduct surveillance in order to investigate crimes. 3 Best Garter NV400 digital night vision binoculars to allow officers to record photos and video evidence in any light setting. And 2 Kodiak backpack breaching toolkits to assist officers to carry breaching tools with them, hands-free, to allow faster response time in critical incidents.
All right, you've heard the report of the city's grant director. What is the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2024-247, participation and approve the entering of a memorandum of understanding to accomplish this purpose in the fiscal year 2024 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program.
A motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2024-247, approving a participation and approve entering into a memorandum of understanding to accomplish this purpose for the 2024 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-247, approving participation and entering into an MOU to accomplish this purpose to the FY 2024 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-248, consideration to approve the purchase of environmental mitigation stream credits for the Boylston Drive at Hammond Drive intersection realignment project, and to authorize the city manager to purchase the credits. This is presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Tonight I bring before you a recommendation to purchase environmental mitigation stream credits as a part of the Boylston Drive at Hammond Drive intersection realignment project, project number T58-1. As I mention all of that, you say to yourself, maybe I've heard this not long ago, and you're right. So with a little background, first to the project, Boylston Drive at Hammond Drive intersection project, when constructed, will involve some permanent impacts to about 135 linear feet of perennial stream channel associated with the culvert extension necessary to build the project. Pursuant to the Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, any disturbance of those stream greater than 100 linear feet will require the stream credits. And I would add that those stream credits have been of late extremely severely limited in availability. However, the city was able to source in July 2024 the necessary credits at that time from Walker Mountain Mitigation Bank and brought before you on August 6, 2024, a recommendation to purchase those credits. It was the practice, or it is the practice of Walker Mountain, however, not to reserve those credits, only to sell them as a bank when those credits are available. Subsequent to your approval, we went forward to purchase those credits, and insufficient credits were now available to city staff for the project. With that said, the city was allowed a broader sweep to look for environmental mitigation credits, and we went to the Georgia-Alabama Land Trust. In this case, you may recollect, we purchased credits from Georgia-Alabama Land Trust as a part of completing our award of the Georgia 400 Path project, and they did have the available credits available, and as well, as we learned in this case, we're able to reserve those credits. So we did get a reservation of those credits as I bring this issue before you tonight. With that said, with the credits no longer being available for Walker Mountain and now being available with GALT, Georgia-Alabama Land Trust, we bring before you a recommendation to purchase the credits now from GALT in the amount of $202,500. Net result of all of this is we'll have a slightly reduced cost for the required environmental mitigation credits for the project.
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve Agenda Item 2024-248 for the approval of the purchase of environmental mitigation stream credits for the Boylston Drive at Hammond Drive intersection realignment project and to authorize the city manager to purchase the credits.
Motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Then moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve Agenda Item 2024-248, the approval of the purchase of environmental mitigation stream credits for the Boylston Drive at Hammond Drive intersection project. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul,
Mr. Baumann.
provided there's not, this is sort of tangentially related. The storm of the century, in a sense, for the southeast, the Helene hurricane. Incidentally, my wife's middle name is Helene, so we
be cautious as you tread.
I've experienced the storm before. Yes. No, but we saw here and around the southeast the consequences of failure to maintain streams and rivers and banks. Obviously, this was an event that kind of didn't matter what you did, but just sort of this be good enough time. I do hope we will come back at a work session to sort of hear about the work that was done. I'm sure we'll hear something today in staff reports, but a real review of what we did, what we maybe could have done, and what lessons were learned for our community for preparations in the future. And this really just highlighted the significance of both the public and the private responsibility in maintaining infrastructure, streams, stream banks, rivers. Again, this was an extraordinary storm that it may not have mattered, but
yes, sir.
I do look forward to hearing back at a later time, maybe in a public work session, so the public can hear this is such an important topic.
Yeah, and what I can offer you tonight, barring any report from the city manager that may be offered tonight, we experienced, again, attributable to the significant amount of rainfall, I think we noted some 55 trees across the city that were felled as a part of the winds, and not so severe winds in this case, but especially due to the tremendous amount of rainfall. A lot of cooperation and work with Georgia Power Company to clear the roadways. By late Saturday night, the roadways were opened reopen the traffic. Again, thanks to Georgia Power and their coordination there. As I sit here or stand here today, of those 55 sites, all the roadways are reopened. And I think we have a tally as I came in here tonight of some 8 sites remaining that still need some debris removal, et cetera, associated with them. But a lot of hard work and a great cooperation from our utility partners in this case to get the roadways reopened. And we'll be glad to report as well, sir, as on any of the other responses we made as well. But that's the most noteworthy fact I have that I could provide to you tonight.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. There's 2 things I'm excited about tonight. One is we don't have to pay as much for the stream credits that we're going to buy in August. And the second is when I drive these roads in 2050, there'll be no fatalities. So 2 things to be happy about tonight. So I want to pass that on.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-248, approving the purchase of environmental mitigation stream credits for the Boylston Drive at Hammond Drive intersection realignment project, and authorizing city manager to purchase those credits. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Go get them before they're gone. All right. Moving on to reports. There have been a lot of things going on in the last few weeks. We've touched on one of them, was the weather. As bad as it was around here, we dodged a bullet. The storm moved to the west, or excuse me, to the east, kind of in the last minute. If the original track of the storm, as had been predicted, I think we've been suffering many of the same problems that Augusta and Greenville and Asheville and a lot of the cities to our east have gone through. But we were very fortunate. As much as my heart goes out to them, we were fortunate that the storm affected them a lot more than it did us. And as much as the damage was here and the rain, the amount of water we got was almost biblical. I just want to say thank you to the staff who did a phenomenal job, Marty and his team, Chief DeSimone, Chief Sanders in the fire department, our communication staff who kept us informed and allowed us to keep our citizens informed, everybody who was part of the emergency operation, and I know I probably left somebody out, but the entire staff did a phenomenal job in responding under unbelievably difficult circumstances, working 24/7 until we did get the roads reopened about 1:30 or so Saturday morning. And if you've never seen these folks at work during an emergency, going into the Emergency Operations Center and see the amount of coordination, the amount of cooperation, and all the amount of work that goes into it, and the city manager is the admiral on the bridge that kind of keeps the ship moving in the storm. So thank you to all who were involved in that, and the whole staff, the senior staff, and everybody else, our folks who were out on the street, our contractors, everybody. I can't tell you the number of comments I have gotten about how the city reacted to that storm and mitigated the impacts on our community, and there's just a tremendous appreciation by a lot of people in this community, and I'm sure all of us up here, to the work that went in and to help us get through that. So thank you. A few things I've been doing. We heard about the Bluestone Festival, and I guess not everybody was quite 100% happy about it, but we had great attendance. It was great. A lot of people were here. So we've got some others that are coming up, not all on this campus. We do have the Oktoberfest coming up in a couple of weeks, and this weekend, the Sandy Springs Wine Festival, which will be down on the Heritage Lawn. If you haven't gotten tickets for that, they're still available. I want to say Happy New Year to our Jewish friends and residents in Sandy Springs. Rosh Hashanah starts at Thursday? Wednesday night. Okay. So we wanted to say that. I've had some conversations. We're still dealing with the impact of the potential closing of the Spalding Drive Elementary School, and I've had some conversations with Dina Holliday Ingram, who's the mayor of East Point, that's the site of the other potential closed school. Mayor Holliday Ingram and I have worked on a lot of great projects together. She's a phenomenal mayor, down on the south side, and we have agreed that we will work together to try and save both schools. They're very important to all of our communities, or both of our communities, and we both agreed that having us working together and operating and talking, at least as city governments, as one voice in dealing with the ramifications of this would be much stronger than just each of us operating on our own. So I'm glad that we've got this ability to work across the county, north, south, to come up with a plan and make the case where both those schools should be saved. Finally, we've got had the Conservancy Thought Dinner out at Morgan Falls, which I thought was very good. It's a little bit different than they've done, but I thought it was a very effective meeting and highlighted our Springway Trail Network. We got a lot of people out there to be able to see it, and there's a lot of excitement around that, and so I think that was a very successful event, and I want to thank the Sandy Springs Conservancy for being such a great partner in our trail network planning and development, and for having that event, which allowed us to show what that phenomenal, particularly the boardwalk around the lake, is just going to be amazing. And I think everybody who got a chance to see that walked away very excited about the long-term prospects for our trail network. So that was very, very worthwhile. And then finally, this past Sunday, I was over at Weber School. They dedicated their new athletic complex, named after a young man, Eaton Force, who was a senior at Weber, was the quarterback of their flag football team, who died in a medical emergency while on the football field. And the school has decided to remember his, it's an inspiring story, his indefatigable spirit, his grit, his determination will be honored for a long time on that campus, and I was honored to be part of the dedication of that new facility in our community. So that, I think, is the end of my list of things. Does anybody else have any? Ms. Mueller.
So I just wanted to continue on. Monday night, October 7th, is the first community meeting for Spalding Drive, and that's at Riverwood High School from 6 to 8.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Baumann.
So sadly, we want to note, I think, the passing of a literal giant in our community, Sandy Springs resident Dikembe Mutombo, who passed away, sadly, just the other day of brain cancer he'd been battling. And, you know, he came to everybody's attention as being a basketball player. He started at Georgetown. He was from, I think, the Congo in Africa. And, you know, I knew somewhat about him. Chris and I had a chance to meet him at a program over at Holy Innocent several years ago. But, you know, just looking on Facebook and social media, everybody met him. He couldn't be missed. I remember seeing him at Goldberg's. People had stories of him at the gym. And this is a guy who, and I'm going to tie it to the 100th birthday of Jimmy Carter, which is today, whose post-basketball career, you know, matched or exceeded his extraordinary accomplishments on the basketball court. The more I've read, the more I've learned, you know, this city should be really, really proud to have been blessed with his presence. I know Chief, he spent a lot of time with the police. There are some moments that sadly his house unfortunately had been, I think, burglarized, but I know he was so grateful to the police, and I just want to note that, and it's a big loss for our community. And just lastly, Jimmy Carter, unbelievable to be 100. I know there are a lot of people in this community who have encountered him over the years. I first met him as a freshman at Emory, post-presidency back in 1982, and I was part of his first intern class. Spent a lot of time with President Carter as like a 19 and 20-year-old. So I think it's important to note his birthday today.
Yep, thank you. Anybody else? All right, staff reports.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out from the response over the last week. Caroline, if you'll pull up the dashboard, please. As you all mentioned, it truly was all hands on deck last week for the city, across all our departments, Public Works, even the facilities team, the fire department, the police department. We began last week monitoring the progress of the storm that would ultimately become Hurricane Helene, and we were watching it for about 3 days before it actually started bringing some of the impacts here. Our emergency operations team met on Wednesday to discuss our preparedness efforts, and we plan to open our EOC at 5 p.m. on Thursday based off of the forecast, which many of you will recall at that point in time had called for the eye of the hurricane to go straight up Georgia, right across Atlanta, right across Sandy Springs. We ended up moving our opening of the Emergency Operations Center to 9 p.m. because Helene didn't end up making landfall at the Big Bend of Florida until 11 p.m. on Thursday. Leading up to that, however, we had already received a significant amount of rainfall from a totally separate rainstorm, which resulted in very soggy ground throughout the city and also flooding in many of our low-lying areas, especially the Nancy Creek area down at our south border at Windsor Meadows Park. Councilman Baumann brought up earlier about some of our investments in stormwater management, and we were truly seeing the benefits of making those investments over the years. I think all of you will recall that we now own Windsor Meadows Park because it was a repetitive flood loss area, and there were houses that were there. We partnered with FEMA and GEMA back in 2010 through 2012, bought those houses because it was floodway for Nancy Creek, and it functioned as it was supposed to. I was out there Thursday night with the chief of police and the fire chief as we saw the floodwaters rising. Y'all saw many of the pictures that I was taking and sending back to you. We literally watched the water rise. Ultimately, there was about 20 feet of water that went through Nancy Creek in that area. And as everyone knows, it is not built or really meant to channel that amount of water. We ended up having 56 trees that fell throughout the city, and this is the dashboard that we were monitoring in the EOC. And you'll see here that they were all over the city. These trees are only trees that fell on the public rights-of-way or fell on our sidewalks, things that were blocking roads. This does not include anything that fell on private property. By Friday at 7 a.m., we were seeing not only the heavy rain and the wind gust, and we ultimately saw anywhere from 8 to 11 inches of rain that fell here in Sandy Springs, with many places to the east of us far exceeding that amount of rainfall. As those gusts came through, that's when the trees started falling, and many of them ended up falling by about 9 a.m. on Friday morning. As they fell, they took out power and communication lines in multiple areas of the city. As our Public Works Director mentioned, we have cleared fully 34 of these, but there are some that are still remaining because there are either utility lines that have been de-energized, but there are still lines or transformers or other communication things owned by the utility companies that are there. We are working as hard as we can to clear those 8 last remaining spots where sidewalks are still impeded, and we will have all of that done just as quickly as possible. We'll work on pulling together a more complete report that we'll bring forward at an upcoming meeting, but I did want you all to see some of the things that we were working off of and also express my pride in our staff and how everyone worked so hard to make sure that our residents were safe and were taken care of, and that we were getting the information out that people needed to know how we were responding to the storm.
Thank you. Any questions of the city manager? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Freeman. Any other staff reports? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda for tonight, but we do need an executive session for the purposes of real estate litigation. Is there a motion to suspend regular order and move into executive session?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move that we do just that, suspend regular order, move into executive session for the purposes of real estate and litigation.
Have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we suspend regular order and move into executive session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on the approval of the executive session. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're in executive session. There will be no further business conducted tonight. We will simply return to this room at the conclusion of the executive session, return to regular order, and then adjourn immediately. Thank you very much.
I'll be back for that meeting on Tuesday. I can do it on video. I can do it when you're sitting at home. Yeah, I can do it on Zoom. I can do it when you're sitting with me. It doesn't matter. Whatever your preference is.
She ended up working, she works at
Oh, it is? I like it.
Mayor,
Hold on, let
I
me,
move that we,
hold on.
yeah, we do, we close executive session and move back in regular order.
Mr. Paulson moves that we close the executive session and return to regular orders. Seconded by Mr. DiGiulio. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on returning to regular order. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Mr. DiGiulio.
Move adjournment.
Mr. DiGiulio moves adjournment. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Paulson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned at 8:07.